Hey everybody, you are looking at Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate, which is the 2D, or really 2.5D version of the Batman Arkham series that you've seen in Batman Arkham Asylum, City, and the brand new Batman Arkham Origins. But all those games were console games, 3D, third-person action games, exploration games. This is basically plays out in 2D, and the 2.5D is because the camera is actually going to move around a bit. This is actually all taking place in 3D space. And we are in the very opening seconds of the game, whereas Batman, we are somewhere in Gotham, and we have thugs to beat up. And what you're seeing is how well the combat system translates to 2D. It's very much the same rules in terms of striking, countering, Catwoman flirting with you, also an integral part of the combat system, I guess. And I'm sorry, I'm going to just talk over some of this. But this is a game that largely does not take place outside of Gotham, and as you'll see after this introduction, we're going to jump ahead into very late in the game. I won't spoil anything, don't worry, but I'm going to show you some of the exploration, because at first you might think, okay, so this is more of like a melee game, right, like a brawler or something like that, with a lot of side-scrolling. Not at all. This is actually a Metroid-style game, and better than that, oh, I got to run glide. It's been so long since I played the intro. Better than it being a Metroid-style game, it is a Metroid-style game made by three of the lead principals behind the Metroid Prime games. The three ex-Retro Studios guys, including the former game designer and art director of Metroid Prime games, left that studio and actually haven't been able to release any major games since then. Various projects canceled or whatnot along the way. But here they are, they're finally back, so it was very exciting for those of us who love those games, the Metroid Prime games. And we get to see what they still got going on. And the fact is, if they are asked to make a Batman game that plays a bit like a Metroid game, or if they decide to do that, or however this came about, it turns out they can still make a pretty damn good Metroid game. Now, when they made Metroid Prime, they were taking a 2D franchise and putting it into 3D. In this case, they're more or less taking a 3D franchise and putting it into 2D. It works really well. I mean, the Arkham games already had a lot of Metroid to them in terms of environmental exploration. Attaining new gadgetry and then using that to get to parts of a game world that previously you couldn't reach. So it's not the biggest stretch ever to have something like this in the Arkham universe. Nevertheless, this game will feel much more Metroid-y to you than anything that you've played in those other games. And in part because the people making it, again, they're very good at making this kind of game. There's essentially a mixture of combat, exploration, attaining the new Batman gadgetry, getting further along. In this opening bit here, they're just teaching you the basic stuff, and they're teaching you now one of the cool adaptations they've done from what happened in the Arkham games to what happens here. In the Arkham games, you go into detective vision mode, and you can kind of look around for things. Here, you just put your finger on the screen. I haven't tried the 3DS game yet. I will by the time you see this. But I can't say how it works there. I'm assuming the touchscreen. And here, though, I hold on things that are green, and then it tells me what they are, and then I can interact with them. And in fact, if I hadn't done that, I don't know that I would have even been able to target it. So you're constantly incentivized to be scanning the environment around.
Where have you been all
can't
my
scan while
life?
she's talking, but you can actually scan a lot of times even while the camera's moving.
There's something you need to know about me, Batman. My game's only got one rule. Finders keepers. And when I play for keeps.
A bit of chit-chat in the beginning of the game, but there winds up actually not being a ton of meddlesome story a lot of the time, but you can scan around, and in the early going there isn't much to find, but once you get to Blackgate Prison, and the reason this is called Arkham Origins Blackgate is because it's mostly set in a prison. Once you get into the prison, there's a million things to scan, because you're scanning for clues to little mysteries that you're trying to solve. It's actually a peripheral thing. You're scanning for like weak points in an area that you're in, that you might be able to use a gadget to kind of blow a hole in the wall or the floor, or be able to find a weakness in a grating that you can pull off. There's all kinds of things that you're going to be using for the scanning. And you know, detective vision may be a thing from the Arkham games, but scanning was also a huge thing in the Metroid Prime games, and that's very much how you would learn about a lot of the game world, and how you would discover a lot of weaknesses, a lot of the lore, and what have you. So I could keep showing you the intro, but this is a pretty good game, and I would recommend that you just Oh, let's knock this guy out. I would recommend that you, if you like Metroid games, that you just go ahead and pick it up. If you like Batman games, I recommend it as well. But I'm going to jump ahead to the prison and show you a little bit more and give you a little bit more of my thoughts on the game. So hold on one second. We're going to jump hours and hours ahead, but I won't spoil anything. Okay, we are way further ahead in the game. We are in Blackgate Prison. I'm actually near the end of the game, but I'm not going to give anything away. For better or worse, there are no enemies to fight. I've beaten everybody up. There are not that many clues to discover because I've scanned so much stuff. So there's not that much that I can show you, and it may feel a little bit like the game is barren. Trust me, it's not. There's tons of stuff to find, secrets, secret passageways, a lot of cool things. I have some cool gadgets like a line launcher, which can get me across places. But the reason that I wanted to even show you any of this is to give you a sense of how the game kind of becomes even more Metroid-ish, and how that works, and how they do the camera angles and stuff like that. So how it's also 2.5D. So yeah, let's just look at some of these cool things. So we're going basically through the environment. You're going to notice occasionally, I think we'll get to some sections where he's going through walls, and it's even going to remind, I think, Metroid Prime players of how Samus would roll into a ball, and in the Metroid Primes, they'd have you kind of going through, like this would happen both in the previous Batman games, but also in the Metroid Primes, where you'd go through gratings and stuff like that. She would have been a ball, right, if this was Metroid. But unfortunately, Batman's moveset is not as interesting as Samus's, and that is one of the things that holds the game back a little bit. I mean, he can grapple hook, he can fist fight and stuff like that, but he doesn't have like cool freeze beams. He can't like, he doesn't have a visor that lets him see sound. So disadvantage Batman, unfortunately, and that unlike the Metroid games and the Castlevania games, there's no sci-fi or magic trappings that really allow them to go wild with the moveset. They do some cool stuff with Batman's moveset, but I think they're held back a little bit by those limitations. Graphically, though, the game does look pretty cool. Again, if I can point out a positive and a negative simultaneously, you always do feel like you're in different rooms, which was a standard that was also kept by the Metroid Prime games. You're always feeling like you're going somewhere new. But you are in a prison. Not only have you done the whole prison thing in Arkham Asylum, so it feels a little bit like rehash, but you also, you know, prisons are not the most exciting looking places. Not as cool looking as where Samus Aran would be. But let me show you how Metroid this is. Here's the map. It's a 2D map. A little bit weird, this is a top-down map as opposed to a side-scrolling map or a 3D map that the Prime games gave you. So even though you're in a 3D space, like here, it isn't that there's a room to the right that has both, that then hooks above the room I'm in. It's that this is top-down, and from a bird's-eye view, he's looking out, and there's another space for him to sort of fall down to, I guess. But it's actually very hard to get a sense of verticality in this, which can be confusing when you're looking for certain collectibles. But otherwise, it works very well as a Metroid-style map. That's actually just a third of it. 3 major sectors of the game. The Joker was in there, and I've captured him. But 2 other sectors, you do a lot of exploration. True to Metroid games, you're going to be going back and forth as you find different gadgets and hack your way through. So there'll be impassable places that then once you get the right thing, you can go back into those areas and do. There's also items to upgrade, suits to find, lore to discover through the scanning system. So a lot of stuff that feels both very true to Batman, very true to Metroid Prime. Read more in my review for a little more detail on some of these things. Overall, a very good execution and translation in terms of turning the Arkham games into a 2.5D thing. A little bit held back by the license, but still extremely well made. If you've been hungering for another Metroid game or a good Batman game, this fits the bill.
He couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
I just realised this video's just going to be 2 British people talking the whole time. Probably going to be really confusing. Oh well. Just to be totally clear, my voice isn't in the game.